Hey friends, it's 11:50 p.m., which is normally very early for me because normally what happens is, I mean, when I say normal, I mean in the context of the past few weeks, I tend to stay up really late until sometimes 3 a.m. 3 a.m. is like early still. I've been going to bed at like 7 a.m. consistently, like the sun comes up before I fall asleep. I go to bed. I'm done with my computer at like 6 something or 7 something in the morning, and then I go to bed at 8, and then I wake up at 3 p.m. So I've been living this very nocturnal life, almost like I'm literally on the night shift. But today is somewhat different. Today I woke up a little bit earlier than I usually do. I went to bed pretty late still. I think I went to bed at 7-ish a.m. and I woke up at like noon, which is earlier than usual for me. And now it's about to be midnight and I'm getting tired. So I actually was thinking of going to bed, going to shower and going to bed. And then I realized that I didn't make a video yesterday. And if I didn't make a video today, then that would be 2 days in a row that I didn't make a video. And I figure that, and at first, for a second, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I considered not making videos for 2 days in a row, which is fine, right? It's entirely up to me whether or not I release a video. I don't have any, well, I'm going to, you spend this video discussing that and discussing the specifics of how I decide whether or not I'm going to make another video, and more broadly how to decide when to stop, when to quit, when to take a break, when to so there's going to be a bit about talking about burnout, I guess, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I'm just going to start talking, right? So a couple of days ago, so I'm very proud of myself for having maintained I think almost an 18 or 19 day streak in the preceding weeks where I was publishing a YouTube video every night. There were some nights where I recorded multiple videos and then I would schedule one every other day. I'll schedule one for each subsequent day. So sometimes I would record like 3 videos and then schedule one that day, schedule one the next day and the one the day after. And then the next day I would record another 3 videos, and so it would kind of fill out the content calendar, so as to speak, although I don't really have a proper calendar. And then eventually I kind of stopped recording extra videos. So the past maybe 5 or 6 days or so, I've been just recording on the day of, right, and publishing that. And 2 days ago, I had one of my monthly intellect salons, which is when I get on a Zoom call with like 50 people and talk for like 5 hours, which is pretty intense and pretty draining. And when I was done with the Zoom call, I don't think I had any energy to record a video after that, I think. And then so my sense of time is completely whack. I don't know what day is what. I don't know if that feels like it was 2 days ago, but maybe it was just yesterday. I think it was just yesterday. But yeah, my sense of time is crazy. And so I made the choice not to make a video yesterday because I feel like the day before that, I had already made a video that was a vlog where I'm just rambling rather than doing a topical ad-lib. And I figured that 2 days back to back of I'm just rambling doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so I didn't do that. So yesterday I took a break and didn't record anything. And today I felt like going to bed, but I decided that I should at least attempt a video, right? And this is the attempt. And I'm pretty confident that I'm going to make it through to about 20 minutes and have something interesting to say. And so I'm going to publish it. And so I just want to chat about that and kind of there's a project management layer aspect to that. There's a motivation aspect to that. There is knowing myself, my limits, my boundaries aspect to that. And what's cool is for me is that a few years ago I definitely wouldn't be able to do this. What would happen is I would probably go 2 days without making a video, 3 days, and then that would spiral into maybe a couple of months without making any videos. And then I would feel bad about it. I would beat myself up about it, apologize for it, which is an apology nobody ever really cares about. And yeah, that was a cycle that I used to experience. And this time, what I'm doing is easing back into it. And I know that this ad-lib has a topic which is about, when do you know how to quit? When do you know when you should quit, or when do you know when you should take a break, and how do you get back in the game, right? I did a lot of that with my personal writing and my journaling and my word vomits, and I experienced some of that with work, like work when I was working in a doing marketing at a software company, and just how many hours a day can I work, and how do I know when I am too tired to continue, and when do I know I should press on. And so I would let me focus on this particular moment in this case. I'm thinking about my YouTube channel and my content plan almost all the time in a background way. So it's not like I'm sitting down analyzing it all the time, but I did, I do think about it in the shower. I do think about it in bed, like what are my next few videos going to be. I've been thinking that I should start doing how-to videos, because I know that just the search traffic you're going to get on how to do X is going to be much higher than the kind of videos that I've been making so far. And the videos that I've been making so far have been deliberately designed to not get too much search traffic, because I kind of want to just build a body of work so that when people do find me, they can figure out the context by clicking around, so that it's just like a bit of world building that I've been doing, and now I feel comfortable enough that making these videos, for one, that I feel more confident in talking about how to do things. Like I do feel like there's a higher level of standard. It's a higher level of standard, of the quality of videos that you're gonna make. When I say quality, I don't mean production quality. I mean the quality of the content that you put out. Like so you're making a bigger promise. When I say how do you do something, right? There's a promise implied in the title, and in that there's going to be a question that's going to be answered, right? And answering a precise question with a precise answer is more challenging than rambling vaguely about some broad idea, for me at least. And I think it should be the case for most people, at least if you have a high standard for what an answer is. I do find that as I tweet more and more, it does seem like most people have a lower standard for what constitutes an answer than I do. But that should, that's actually kind of dangerous for me as a creator, because I should be living up to my expectations and not settling for what people accept, right? So this video is about how to know when to stop. And the short answer is that you have to know how you're feeling, which is much more complex than it sounds. So some people will say, oh, that's, if you're watching this video because you looked this up, that you'll be like, that doesn't answer my problem. Like, I don't know how I'm feeling, because, and I remember I have tweets specifically that said things like, how do I know if I'm trying my best? Am I at 20%? Am I at 80%? Am I at 50% of my best effort? Like, I don't know. How much work can I actually do in a day? Is it that I do a little bit of work and then I fuck around for the rest of the day? Like, is it that I could actually spend a day doing that much work? If I spend an hour doing productive work and then goofing off for 5 hours, does that mean that I could be productive for 6 hours? Actually, the answer is no. You should assume that the answer is no until you've done it, right? And if you like, that's very important. It was a thing that I struggled to deal with, because I was so dependent on my concept of my own potential as a source of self-worth. And now I realize that you shouldn't even really be trying to evaluate your self-worth, because your system of evaluation is itself flawed. So like, you're trying to assess something, you're trying to measure something with a faulty tape measure, right? So what you really want to do, rather than try to estimate your self-worth based on your potential, which you cannot measure accurately, you want to accumulate self-respect for the amount of work that you have done. So if you have 6 hours of work day in a day, and I personally have come to believe that I only can be productive, and I say really productive, like really doing my best work, I can only really be productive for about 4 hours a day. And so if I have a 6 hour day, if I have 6 hours of work, right, I would spend, like, even then, 2 hours of that is going to be for breaks and goofing off. Like, it just has to be that way. I have just come to terms with that for myself. And I came to terms with that for myself from years of journaling and experimentation and making plans for what I'm going to do that day, fucking up those plans completely, evaluating at the end of the day how much work was actually done. Like, realistically, on average, I do if I'm lucky, on a good day, I do 2 hours of good work. In practice, there are often many days where I don't do any work at all, even though maybe like 3 out of 5 days I sit down at my desk and try to work and end up getting distracted and whatnot. And sometimes, one really good hour of work in a month can be something that creates some lasting asset that's valuable to me for years, right? And to be fair, these are conditions for people doing creative work, so for a writer, for a person making videos, right? Imagine if, let's say, so just with the context of video, so I'm still pretty early in my YouTuber career or project system, whatever, but I have been writing for a very, very long time. I've written thousands of blog posts and, over 1 million words, and I didn't always write every day, right? Sometimes I would go weeks without writing, and then sometimes there'll be one day where I wrote something so good, like I wrote an essay on Mean Girls in 2013 after I watched the movie, and it's still good. I still refer it to people, and people still like it, and I'm gonna make a video about it one day. But people still like it. It still makes me friends, and people still wanna offer me jobs, and look up the rest of my writing and all that because of that, like 30 minutes that I spent writing that Mean Girls essay after I watched the movie in 2013. So, the value of that, like if you ask me to put a dollar value on that essay I would say is worth like $10,000 or more to me. It's made me friends. It's like the cascading effect downstream is insane. But, I cannot make those things happen on command. It doesn't happen at will. And when I pressure myself into trying to write great things in advance, it doesn't happen. It's almost counterproductive. I always write great things almost by accident. But so the way for me to be productive as a creative is to set up a lot of accidents, right? To take a lot of random walks. To the moment inspiration strikes in some way, the moment I have some idea or something, like I laugh like, wouldn't it be funny if? And then I follow through. The moment I think, wouldn't it be funny if? I'm like, okay, I'm going to write it down right now. I'm going to tweet a thread about it. I'm going to write a blog post about it. And, then if I get started without paying attention to the time, like an hour, 2 hours will pass. But it never crosses 4 hours. Like by the 4-hour mark, I'm usually exhausted or I'm over, usually whatever's good is done in an hour and a half or so. But the time adds up, you see. It really, an hour. I regret that I didn't learn to write for, let's say, 20 minutes a day no matter what. And I found myself saying to a friend, like, I remember what it was like to have a full-time job and to feel like I really didn't have the energy to write sometimes. And what I would have done is, I did try to write on my commutes at least. And I didn't publish all of it because sometimes I would start writing and then get distracted and then not finish. But I do think the practice of writing on all my commutes was a really good one. And it made me a better writer, even if I didn't publish every single thing that I wrote. And yeah, so right now while I'm making this video, I started this video kind of knowing that it's probably not going to be great, right? I don't expect to make great videos. I don't expect any of my ad-lib videos or my, I don't expect any video that I make in 2020 to be like really great. Like I bet my good shit's gonna come around in 2022, let's say, right? I'm kind of greasing the groove. I'm like clearing the floor and building the chops. I'm doing the drills and practices to get to the point where when I want to make a really good video, I'm going to get a better camera soon, and then I'm going to start experimenting with cuts for some of my videos, not all. I'm still going to do these kind of ad hoc, ad-lib, vloggy type videos. But I do believe that sort of a baseline work ethic is worth doing. And, so yesterday I was completely exhausted, and so I knew that even if I attempted to make a video, I wouldn't know what to talk about. I'll probably be repeating what came the day before. It was really late. So, alright, 1 day's break. Today, I'm sleepy and tired, but I want to at least I think in my head, I thought, let's just sit down and start. And if I can sit down and start, if I can get past the first 2 or 3 minutes, I usually can on the fly figure out where the next 20 minutes are going. And then I can publish it, and then I can have a cadence of publishing, and a cadence of publishing is very healthy to have. Like just a sense of routine. Like when you know that you're publishing every day, like your subconscious will work with you, and you'll start waking up in the morning with ideas already in your head because it sort of expects that you start paying attention to the world with what should go into my next video or my next newsletter or my next blog post, right? And that's part of the fun of the creative life if you want to be creative. But have I answered the original question, which is do you know when to stop? Well, so okay, one thing I would say is have that hard limit of never work more than 4 hours a day if you create, like for me. Like, and when I say work, I mean really intense, full focus kind of work. And for me, realistically, I never do more than 2 hours of that. Sometimes, and there are often days where I don't. But like, I definitely cap my stuff at 4 hours a day. And I would say if you have been slipping in some way, like more than once a week or a couple of times a month or whatever, like you should start to understand when you need a longer break. So there will be I do anticipate that while I am making videos almost every day, this stuff is still fresh for me, and there will come a point where it will be wise for me to not make any videos at all for a month. And what will be cool for me is if I can be making multiple videos a day, so that in the month that I am not recording, I can still be publishing. That would be cool. But even if it's not possible, I do think it's worth taking extended breaks. Something like a day a week, right? And then a week every month or so if possible, or every 10 weeks, and then like a month a year, and then like a year every 6-7 years. There's a certain kind of rhythm to it that you can figure out. And the point of that is to really kind of give yourself space to breathe, and to because when you're focused on doing work every day and you're thinking about what should go into my vlog or podcast or whatever, you have the benefit of focus, but there's also a cost to focus, which is that it's a kind of tunnel vision, right? You get to focus, right? You focus, but then you don't know what you're not seeing, and the environment around you could be changing, and new opportunities might be opening up, and you don't want to be distracted by new opportunities while you're working in the moment. But like, periodically you do want to let go of the focus and kind of like step back and look around and be like, okay, what's going on in the world, right? What are some trends? What are some you don't want to be watching that shit every single day. You don't want to lead your day with that stuff. You want to lead your day with whatever it is that you've already planned and are working on, assuming you've spent some time kind of examining yourself, introspecting, figuring out what your priorities are, and you're working on things that have had recurring relevance to you. By recurring relevance, I mean, if something has frustrated you on 3 different occasions in different years or different months, then you know that you can kind of guess that it will probably frustrate you again. So looking out for repeated frustrations, and then I've definitely had multiple conversations with people about burnout and about and with myself, even without anybody else in the picture. Like, I deal with this all the time. Like, when do I stop? When do I write? When do I not? And I used to agonize about whether I was bullshitting myself about my tiredness levels. Like, was I getting distracted from, so I would go to work, and then I would come home from work, and then so let's not even talk about work. Let's talk about passion as a side project aside from work, right? So work itself was also a challenge, but I'm not going to talk about that in this context. So I'd go to work, I'll be done with work, I'll be tired, and I would be weary and whatnot, and I would just want to relax, and I would just want to watch videos or play games or something. But I also knew that I wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to write as much as possible. So my personal thing was I used to use an Android phone, and then I used to have Evernote, and I would write in my Evernote on my phone, stream of consciousness, whatever came to mind, right? Which is part of how I am moderately decent at doing these things. Like, even though I'm using my mouth instead of my hands, like, I'm just used to pulling thoughts out of my head and laying them out in expressible, coherent sentences, like coherent enough, right, that you can follow. And I'm glad I did that. I do think that, no matter how tired you are, no matter how exhausted or whatever, it's generally possible to do 20 minutes of some kind of creative work, even in the shittiest sense. So you can practice guitar for 20 minutes, even if it's bad. I mean, again, like, with music, they'll say don't practice badly. And I'm making some special progress in my guitar practice right now, because I realized that I've been doing it all wrong for years, and I wasn't focusing on melody. I have a separate playlist of videos of my guitar learning journey if you want to check that out. But and I'm not very good. I've been playing for a very, very long time, and I'm not very good because I've been practicing all wrong. And I get emotional now experiencing the progress that I've been experiencing because I've been focusing on the correct things. So definitely seek out people who are more experienced than you, who can have been through what you've been through and can talk you through the specifics of whatever it is that you're dealing with. Because very often there may be some elegant solution that you're missing because you're kind of blinded by your context. Like when you're in the thick of it, you can't see, where the exit is. You can't see like everything's just blurry and vague. But it might be more obvious to someone who's already been there. I do find that as I get older, the more I have conversations with younger people, the more it seems like everything, a lot of their problems, I'm not going to say their problems are easy. It's challenging, but it's it's problems that I'm familiar with, and so I can guide them to like I can't solve it for them, right? And I can if I tell them what to do, that doesn't necessarily make them do it. Really, the best thing you can do, I find, for people who are struggling is to ask them the right questions that will guide them themselves to the solution, right? It's like, what do you think is, and the precise, like calibrating the question such that it's appropriate and compelling. That itself is an art form that you get better at with practice, and it's a calibration thing, right? And with music, I find that when what I've been trying to play by ear. I've been trying to sing the melodies on the guitar neck with my fingers, and I'm trying to not think about it. I'm trying to just hear this music, and then when I'm playing like Jingle Bells or whatever, it's like da 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 na, like this na 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 na, and then if I go too far, I feel that I've gone too far. Then I rather than look down and start checking for what the correct note is, I just slide back, and I realize that that's what we do when we speak. And language is the most organic thing that we tend to learn, and if assuming we learned it by picking it up from other people, from conversations with other people. And like, we're very forgiving of mistakes. We retrace our steps. We use a different word if we can't get a word right. Like, it's very flexible and resourceful. And I'm trying to make my music learning to be about that. And I feel like there's something similar with regards, and that's like a metaphor for learning anything, including how to manage your time and how to manage your projects. There is a feel. There's a, you just take any object. This is my aircon remote. It doesn't matter what this object is. There's a certain way of, one of my friends pointed out, have you ever seen how a blind person feels objects? Like when they're feeling, and there's this cute video of this blind girl feeling a muscular man to feel his muscles. And there's this very systematic way that, I'm not doing it correctly or properly, but there's this very systematic way of grasping and kind of feeling to kind of draw a map of because the person can't see, so they're drawing a map in their head, right, of what they see based on touch. And it's very, it's something that we don't do as people who can see. Like, we can map the object by looking at it, right, but they have to touch it, right? And musicians can do it with sound, like good musicians, but I wasn't a good musician, and so I had this kind of semi-broken model where I'm thinking about what I'm playing, and if it's off, it just sounds wrong and bad. But I wasn't thinking about, okay, but how off is it though? Like what is how far away am I from what is it that I'm trying to say? That is that system of calibration that you want to get at. And so, you want to know when you're tired, and I know what it's like to not be able to figure that out. I know what it's like to be hungry, and if my wife asks me, are you hungry? I'm like, no, I'm not hungry, even though I'm hungry. But I have gotten used to suppressing my feelings. Sometimes I need to pee, and I don't pee for like an hour, like really, like seriously, like a very, very long time, and I'm just sitting there at my computer, like I need to pee, like my body is telling me that I need to pee, but I'm just scrolling through Twitter or something. And like my theory is that all of these things, whether it's like childhood trauma or school or whatever it is that conditions you to be not sensitive to your embodied feelings, then you won't know when you're getting burnt out. Like it'll be like getting drunk. You underestimate the effect, because the effect is corrupting your estimation, right? And so I would say there's a bunch of heuristics you can use when you have not yet developed that sensitivity. But the goal is to develop that sensitivity. When you have developed, kind of like really good sensitivity, you can disregard all the heuristics and rules because you just know what to do at any given point in time. The same way you know how to say words however you're saying them without making a plan of what words you're gonna say, right? As I'm speaking, I'm not planning these words. I'm just letting them come out. And it can happen the same way in terms of like even the thing that, so this whole video just came out in a sense, right? It's just I decided to sit down and just make a video, and now I'm making a video, and now I'm going to publish it. Then I'm going to shower and I'm going to go to bed. Wow, I'm impressed with myself, right? Based if that sounds normal to some people, but for me, I'm a kid a man now. I'm an adult, right? But as a kid, I was just constantly in chaos, not knowing what time it was, not knowing how awake or sleepy I am, not knowing if I'm hungry or not. Like I'm just all up in my head, I guess. And the way to know when to stop. I wanted that's the promise that I want to put in the title of the video, and I'm not sure if I feel comfortable putting it. But let's just put it in and see what happens. Like see if some people don't like it and then they comment saying what the fuck, this video is 26 minutes and you haven't answered my question. Like okay, then that's a data point to learn from. But okay, let me try and go through the basics of answering the question. How do you know when to stop? When your quality starts to break down. So with again, it's to answer the question, there are all these meta questions you have to ask, which is things like why are you doing what you're doing? What are your goals, right? What are your priorities? What will be the costs of not stopping? So with regards to like weightlifting and stuff, like you stop so that you don't get injured, right? If you keep going, when you are like, if you work through the pain, or if you work through something, like you gonna get injured. And an athlete, and so before you get injured, there's like normal soreness and discomfort, and like some amount of that is healthy. And if you're an athlete, you're probably gonna work through it more than if you're just a casual person. And then if you go further up that spectrum from injury to tiredness and soreness, and then to kind of I just don't feel like it, right? And some people will say if you don't feel like it, you just shouldn't do it, right? But I've experienced so many times where I didn't feel like working out, and then I worked out, and then I felt great afterwards, right? Same for creativity. I didn't think, a part of me was thinking, I don't feel like making this video, I'm not gonna make it, fuck it, let's just skip another day, what's the big deal? But I feel good now that I'm almost done with the video, because I've crossed my threshold for what is good enough to publish. But I didn't necessarily know for sure that I would feel good at the end of the video. But 20 minutes is a small piece of thing to sacrifice in any given day. So I would say, no matter how burnt out maybe there are like extreme cases, but as a general principle, like 20 minutes of working on something that you love, I think is always worth doing. Like whether it's at the start of the day, at the end of the day, whether you have to sneak out of your house to do it, or wake up in the middle of the night to do it. 20 minutes is not too much to ask. You can draw a sketch of a character, you can write a couple of 100 pages of your novel. You do that 20 minutes every day. That's up, And if you really have to miss a day, then you just gotta do it again the next day. It's and you shouldn't beat yourself up over it. You shouldn't kind of make a big deal out of it. Like the point is just to get back and keep going. And you wanna accumulate small wins. And if you're like me and you're kind of ADHD and kind of chaotic, you can't really be too you can't put too much pressure on the streak. You enjoy the streak if there's a streak, but if you fall off the streak, you got to take it lightly and be like, oh okay, I missed a day, I'm gonna get right back on it. And it's like, I think about how I felt about reading as a child, which was that I love to read. My parents allowed me to read, and they would buy me books and stuff, but they didn't pressure me into it. They didn't say, oh, you better read. And I never felt ashamed of reading, and I never felt guilty for not reading. I just liked reading, and I just did it. And that's the kind of gentle power that you can have. And I would say that's close to ideal for like a creative process. Like just have a daily process where you do a little bit of work. If you can carve out the time and space to want to do a lot more work, you should. And if you can't, then you don't. But yeah, I guess when if it feels painful or if it feels insurmountable, like so yesterday when I was day before yesterday after my salon, I had just done 5 hours of videos, and then the prospect of another half hour of talking, like my throat was dry, and I just knew that I wasn't gonna be intelligible, and so I didn't make a video. And the day before that, I was tired and sleepy, and I thought, I can't do one of my ad lib videos where I talk about a topic and be intelligent, but it would be entertaining and fun to talk about, like a meta conversation about that, and I didn't want to repeat it. So I don't know if I've answered the question. I do think it's something that is, is worth exploring more closely. I don't think I'm going to put how to in the title, but it's something that I get better at with practice, and it's okay to stop whenever you want to stop. And I think what is really useful is to get into the habit of starting very quickly and stopping very quickly if you have to, because I think it's the inertia that really kills people, that spoils the process, right? It's you take a very long time to start, and then once you've started, that's cool, and you keep going. And then if you stop, you then stop for a very long time because it takes a very long time to start up again. And I think what you need to do is you need to have a thing where you can at any point snap your fingers, sit down, start writing out 200 pages of fiction, right? Or start sketching, or start practicing a melody. Now my go-to on my guitar is I'm going to start practicing whatever melody of whatever song comes into my head, and I get to play the nuances of the melody. And so that has turned guitar practicing for me into something quite pleasurable. And once I'm like a minute or 2 minutes into practicing a melody, then it opens up for me, and there's a whole bunch of other things that I want to try. And same for once I start talking into the camera, I want to keep talking and explore certain aspects of the ideas. So I think it's worth practicing starting and stopping. I think it's worth even practicing sometimes where you're in a flow state and you've been productive for a couple of hours and you think you can keep going. I recommend stopping anyway, just so that you have that experience of stopping. And then once you've stopped, like right at the end of that session, write down notes for yourself about what you want to do next. And because you want to create a good handoff between your various selves. One of my quotes is one of my tweets is, you can't, like, anything really, really worth doing requires project management. And you should go and watch my project management video as well. Anything that really is worth doing is a large project, and any large project is a collaboration between many, many instances of yourself. So it's not just you, it's today you, tomorrow you, the day after you, happy you, sad you, depressed you, sick you, like all the versions of you. And communicating across selves, at least in my experience as someone with like a chaotic ADHD kind of mind, is something that I can't just leave it to chance or just trust that it'll work out. I need to leave notes for my future self to pick up and be like, oh, okay, the previous guy wanted these things and I'm going to follow up on that. And when I do that, I find that that too makes things easier to start. And yeah, so I guess practice starting a lot. And I know that conflicts a little bit with some ideas about deep work, for example, in the sense of like you have to have this very big project. And again, if what I'm saying doesn't quite make sense to you, then disregard it. This is for people with my kind of brain and my kind of thinking. But for me, I find that lots of little small sketches for me, instinctively they build towards a bigger project. Like when I start doing lots of little things, it ends up spiraling out into something bigger. And usually that feels more organic, natural, correct than if I try to plan something big and then it just gets really unwieldy, and there's this whole section that I kind of forced it in there because it looks elegant from the top down, and it's really, I find that bottom up is usually the way to go. And we're reaching 35 minutes, so I'm just going to end this here. And I will follow up. So, I don't think I've covered everything that I should, and I'm not sure what exactly I'm missing. So, if I didn't sufficiently answer your question, or if there's something you want to know more about or hear more about from me, let me know in the comments. And see you around. Done. Thanks for hanging out.